My name is Grace Lyman. I'm 33 and live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I used to believe that if I loved enough, gave enough, then eventually people would love me back. But not every heart knows how to return kindness, especially when blood ties are weighed against chosen love. I never planned on becoming a mom at 25, but life doesn't ask permission. Madison entered my world like a storm, not because she disrupted it, but because she taught me how to love fully, without conditions. She's the daughter of Haley, my cousin, who was more like a sister, who died in a tragic car accident alongside her husband when Madison had just turned 2. When I got the call from the Minnesota State Police Department, I couldn't feel my fingertips. The only thought echoing in my mind was Madison has no one. A tiny girl, crumbs on her cheeks, sat in the lobby, clutching a ragged teddy bear, eyes swollen from tears. I walked in, wrapped her in my arms, and everything changed. I became a mother, not by biology, but by choice. Adoption wasn't easy. I was young, single, and made a modest income working as an assistant communications director at a startup. But I was persistent. I gathered every required document, hired a family attorney, and patiently answered every question in court. A year later, I was legally recognized as Madison Lyman's mother. I promised myself she would never question if she was loved. 3 years later, I met Noah, a man whose smile could brighten a whole room. We met at a media tech conference in Minneapolis. He was passionately debating the role of AI in ad moderation, while I was simply trying to grab coffee without spilling it on my notes. He was the only one who helped clean up the mess without laughing. 1 year later, he knelt beside Madison and handed me a ring, and her, a tiny heart-shaped necklace. "Please," he said, "let me be family to both of you." We married in October, surrounded by Wisconsin's fiery red leaves. After the ceremony, Noah began the process to adopt Madison. On paper, she took his last name, but in our hearts, she had always been ours. Not everyone understood that kind of bond. The first time I met my in-laws, David and Carol, was at Noah's 36th birthday dinner. They lived in Appleton, about a 2-hour drive from Milwaukee, and proudly called themselves keepers of traditional American values. David was tall, reserved, and unreadable. Carol, always in pearls with perfectly styled hair, made me uneasy in a way I couldn't explain. "Madison is just darling," she said, handing the girl a doll, then added, "though she doesn't really look like anyone in the family, does she?" I smiled, steadying my tone. "She's adopted," I said calmly. Noah squeezed my hand beneath the table. "Oh," she nodded, glancing at Madison. "So, whose side of the family is she from?" That wasn't curiosity, it was a bloodline probe. I was used to it. I'd been told before I'd taken in someone else's burden. Strangely, Madison, 6 years old then, beamed as she hugged the doll and chirped a sweet thank you. She didn't catch the undertone in her grandmother's voice, but I did, loud and clear. Carol and David had a biological granddaughter, Julia, Noah's niece, through his older brother Ryan. Julia was born the same year as Madison, just 2 months apart. And from that moment on, it became painfully clear, in their eyes, Julia was the real grandchild. Madison, just the extra. At first, I thought I was being overly sensitive, but over time, the little things piled up. Family photos featured only Julia. Christmas cards had only her name. Madison's birthday gifts were cheap art supplies, while Julia got a kid's Apple Watch. At family dinners, Madison was asked if she missed her birth parents, while Julia was praised for carrying the Lyman blood. I believed, foolishly, that if I stayed kind and patient, they'd come around. I was wrong, because you can pour every ounce of love into a child, but some people only see her through the lens of blood. And that lens, if never shattered, will strangle the joy right out of an innocent childhood. That June, we drove to Appleton for Julia's birthday party. Madison wore a floral dress I'd just bought her, with neatly braided curls framing her face. She ran through the backyard laughing among floating balloons. I noticed the two cakes immediately. One was three-tiered, pastel pink with Happy Birthday Julia scripted in perfect cursive. The other, small and store-bought, was shoved to the side with Madison scrawled in shaky white icing. I froze. Noah squeezed my hand gently. They said it made sense to combine the party since their birthdays are close, he whispered. I didn't blame him. He always hoped for the best in his parents. But Carol's glowing pride toward Julia, compared to her glances at Madison, cool and distracted, burned in my chest. Throughout the party, no one mentioned Madison. David stood to give a toast, thanking everyone for celebrating our bright, well-behaved granddaughter, the pride of our family. Not a word about the other child on that table. I looked toward the porch, where Madison sat quietly with her tiny gift box. Her gaze lingered on the crowd, cheering for Julia unwrapping a new iPad. Her gift? A box of crayons, not even premium ones, just a dented pack that looked like it came from a roadside gas station. Maybe it was a mix-up, Noah said on our drive back to Milwaukee. I'll talk to them. But those mix-ups kept happening. That Christmas, Carol mailed us 2 boxes, one labeled Julia, the other Madison. I let Madison open hers. Julia received a plush North Face jacket, baby pink with faux fur trim. Madison? A thin pair of knit gloves from Dollar Tree, the price tag $1.25, still attached. Madison didn't say a word. She smiled softly, slipped the gloves on, and went back to coloring at the coffee table. I called Carol. She answered on the 5th ring, voice pleasant as always. Thank you for the gifts, I said, carefully. But there seems to be a very clear difference. She laughed, cold as shattered glass. Oh, Grace, don't be so sensitive. Julia is our biological granddaughter. Of course we'll invest a little more. Besides, Madison's easy to please, isn't she? I hung up, hands trembling. Noah stood in the doorway, silent. He'd heard it all. We asked Madison gently if anything felt off during visits. She shook her head, hesitated, then said, Grandma said I shouldn't expect too much. She said I was lucky you chose me. Not everyone gets that chance. I turned away so she wouldn't see my eyes sting. At Thanksgiving dinner that year, I remember everything. A long embroidered tablecloth, the scent of roasted turkey, family members raising glasses, naming what they were grateful for. When it was Carol's turn, she smiled sweetly and said, I'm thankful for a wonderful granddaughter like Julia. She carries the Lyman blood. She's smart and she matters. No one reacted. Madison quietly set her spoon down, head lowered. I reached beneath the table and held her hand. It was ice cold. Her face remained still, but behind her eyes, something collapsed. Maybe it was disappointment, tightly wrapped in silence. On the drive home, Madison asked quietly, Mom, if I hadn't had the last name Lyman from the start, would you still have picked me? I had to pull over, unbuckle my seatbelt, and hold her tight as snow fell like scattered rain. I didn't answer with words. I just held her until she stopped trembling. But it didn't stop there. The photos they posted on social media, hiking trips, Christmas gatherings, family dinners, always featured Julia. Even when Madison was present, she was nearly erased from every frame. One photo is burned into my memory, right in front of the Christmas tree at their house. Julia in the center, Carol's arm wrapped around her shoulder. Madison stood to the right, half her body hidden behind the glass cabinet door. I asked Noah, "Do you see it?" He was quiet for a long time before nodding. I'll talk to them. But I knew words weren't enough. I started documenting everything, every gift, every comment, every photo. Not to fight, but to remind myself, I'm not imagining this. Madison isn't imagining it. She is truly being hurt, bit by people who call themselves family. What I didn't expect was that things were about to get worse, and it was coming fast. I got an email from HR on Monday morning, a mandatory 3-day conference in San Francisco for all regional directors. I tried to request a virtual option, even explained my family situation, but it wasn't approved. Madison had Friday off for her school's spring performance, something she'd looked forward to for weeks. I didn't want to miss it. But with back-to-back meetings from 8 a.m. to evening, I had no choice. Noah had flown to Seattle the day before to handle a crisis with a key partner. He was supposed to be gone just 2 days, but suddenly, the trip extended through the weekend. I tried to delegate, but they want me in person, he said hoarsely over the phone. I'll be back as soon as I can. We called around to relatives, but everyone was busy. Our regular sitter had moved out of state. My mom, all the way in Ohio, was still recovering from heart surgery. Noah suggested, what if Madison stays with my parents for a few days? I hesitated. Carol always says she wants more time with Madison, he said, lowering his voice. Maybe. They'll be kinder if they have real bonding time. I wasn't sure, but it was only 3 days. Maybe it would pass smoothly. We'd video chat every night. I'd be home soon. Wednesday morning, I packed Madison's bag myself. 2 pairs of pajamas, allergy meds, schoolwork, and her cat-shaped pillow she couldn't sleep without. I knelt in front of her by the car. If anything makes you uncomfortable, call me right away, okay? Madison nodded, hugging her stuffed bear tightly. Carol parked in front of the house. David sat in the passenger seat, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She didn't get out, just rolled down the window and gave a forced smile. It's only 3 days, Grace. Don't stress so much. I held Madison's hand one last time, watching the car disappear down the street before I went back inside, heart heavy as stone. That evening, I landed at SFO in the cold rain. As I opened my suitcase, a text popped up. Arrived safely. Everything's fine. No photo. No emotion. I called Madison at 8 p.m. David picked up. He said she was taking a bath. I waited 15 minutes. No call back. At nearly 9:30, Madison appeared on the screen. Her face was pale under the ceiling light, her eyes dry, voice barely above a whisper. Are you okay, sweetheart? Yes, I'm okay. What did you do today? Watch TV? Was it fun? She nodded, but her eyes darted to the left. I sensed someone nearby. Before I could ask more, the screen went black. I sat still, phone glowing in my hand. Something wasn't right. Not at all. Thursday night, I called again at 7:30. No answer. Near 9 o'clock, I tried once more. Carol answered. Madison's asleep. She was a bit tired today. I asked if I could talk to her briefly. Carol hesitated. Grace, the girl needs rest. She was sluggish this morning, complained about homework. I had to be a little firm. I frowned. Meaning? I had her clean her room and took away TV time. She needs discipline, Grace. She can't always be spoiled. I bit my lip. Her tone was calm, but it chilled me. I'll call back in the morning, I said, hanging up before my anger boiled over. I couldn't sleep. Every presentation the next day blurred before my eyes. I checked my phone every hour. Friday morning, an email from the partner company arrived. Their afternoon session was canceled due to their director's emergency hospitalization. I left the meeting room immediately and called Noah. He had just booked a flight back to Milwaukee. I'm flying back now, I told him, as soon as possible. I didn't announce it. I didn't want anyone preparing anything. I caught the soonest flight. The entire way there, one image stayed in my mind. Madison biting her lip, eyes cast out of frame as if waiting for permission to speak. The taxi pulled up in front of Carol's house at 3:15. The driveway was empty. No voices, no sign anyone was home. I rang the bell, no answer. I tried the handle. It wasn't locked. The house was eerily silent. I called out. No one answered. I walked quickly down the hallway and into the kitchen. On the table sat a plate of cold food. The window was cracked open, letting in wind that made the curtains flutter. I ran upstairs. Madison, where are you? A small sound came from behind the laundry room door. I rushed over and opened it. Madison was sitting on the floor, curled up beside a pile of unfolded clothes. Her eyes were red and her hands were clenched tightly together. She wore a t-shirt stained with detergent and no shoes. I dropped to my knees. What are you doing in here? Madison didn't speak. She just trembled. I pulled her into my arms. How long have you been here? Grandma. Said I made a mess with water. Said I didn't know how to keep the house clean. Then she went out with Julia. Said she'd be back before dinner. Did you lock the door? No, I don't know how. I felt like I couldn't breathe. How long have you been alone? Since breakfast. I looked at the clock. It was almost 4 p.m. All day. She had been left alone all day, no real food, no supervision, no one. I called Noah, my voice shaking. I found her. At your parents' house, alone, 6 hours. You need to come back as soon as possible. I'm not letting this go. Noah's flight landed at 8:30 p.m. As for me, I never took my eyes off Madison. She fell asleep in my arms on the couch, her hand still gripping my sleeve like she was afraid I'd vanish. I stroked her hair. My mind wasn't swirling anymore, just one thing stood clear. Anyone who made her feel abandoned had no place in our lives. I stepped across the threshold of the house on Maple Ridge without a welcome. The late sunlight spilled into the empty hallway, reflecting off the polished tiles strangely. The kitchen in the back smelled sharply of bleach. A soaking wet rag lay crumpled on the floor. On the counter, an upside-down purple plastic cup left a trail of grape juice all the way to the dining table leg. I called out loudly, "Madison." No response. Instinct quickened my steps. My heels clicked against the floor, echoing like a heartbeat. I passed the living room, empty. A window cracked open, wind tugging at the curtain. Beneath the coffee table, Fluffy, the stuffed bunny, lay on its side, one ear flattened. I turned and ran to the laundry room, Madison's usual hiding place when she felt lost. The door was ajar, white light leaking through the gap. I pushed it open. Madison was kneeling on the tile floor, gripping a stiff bristled brush, scrubbing hard against the soapy surface. Her head was down, tangled sweaty hair nearly covering her face. Her left knee was red, sweat pants soaked through. Next to the bucket was a drenched paper towel, stained purple. I froze. Madison? Her tiny body stiffened, the brush clattered to the floor. She turned, eyes wide with fear, until she realized who had called her name. Mommy? I rushed in and pulled her close. The sharp mix of floor cleaner and sweat clung to her. Her little body shook, trying to stay composed. Her hands were pruned, fingertips peeling from soaking in chemicals too long. Why are you here? What happened? Madison buried her face in my shoulder. I spilled grape juice on the dining room carpet. Grandma Carol got mad. She made me scrub the whole kitchen floor before I could eat. If I didn't finish, I couldn't have any afternoon cake. Where are they? Where are my in-laws? She took Julia to Waterworld, said I couldn't go because outsiders don't appreciate things. I tightened my hold, trying to stay calm. Over. Outsider? Madison nodded faintly, her voice cracked. She said, I'm just a paperwork grandchild, not real family. She said Julia is the true Lyman bloodline, that since you were kind enough to take me in, I should be grateful, not complain, not ask for things. My eyes stung. I helped Madison stand and brought her to the bathroom. When I took off her clothes, I saw a purple bruise on her right shoulder. My throat closed. Where did this come from? Yesterday, I dropped a bowl while washing. Grandma grabbed my shoulder and pulled me away. She said, clumsy since day one, never learned how to act right. I took a deep breath. No tears, not in front of her. Did they do anything else? Madison looked at me, as if deciding whether to tell me more. For lunch, Julia got pizza and ice cream. I only got dry bread and water. Grandma said I don't need luxuries. Did anyone else hear them say that? Madison shook her head. Just the two of them. Julia didn't notice. She got to play all day. I worked. I dried her off with a towel, applied cream to her scraped knee, gently untangled her hair with my fingers. Then I dressed her in her favorite moonprint pajamas and wrapped her in the thick blue blanket. She fell asleep in my arms, chest rising and falling in heavy breaths. I laid Madison down, kissed her forehead, and walked out to the living room. Night had fallen. An engine sound came from the driveway. Headlights swept across the lawn. I stood in the foyer, lights off. The door opened. Carol entered first, holding a shopping bag with the Waterworld logo. David followed, half carrying a drowsy Julia. I didn't move. "Goodness grace," Carol gasped, clutching her bag. "You scared me. What are you doing here?" I flew back early and found Madison scrubbing the floor. Left alone for nearly half a day, David laid Julia on the couch, looking around awkwardly. Carol tried to stay composed. She caused trouble, spilled juice on an expensive rug. I taught her a lesson. It's no big deal. I didn't take my eyes off her. By making her scrub the floor with bare hands until her skin cracked. No food, no one watching her. Carol clicked her tongue. "You're too sensitive." I taught her responsibility. Kids today are spoiled. "You told my child she was picked up, that she isn't your real granddaughter." She said nothing. Didn't deny it. Madison has bruises. She's scared. She believes she's unloved. David stepped in quietly. My mother's voice trails off as she grapples with her. "But you did. Not just once. And not by accident." I pointed to the door. "You both need to leave this house right now." Carol clutched her bag straps, her face twitching slightly. "You have no right to keep us from seeing our granddaughter. I am Madison's legal mother. Anyone who hurts my daughter has no place here." I opened the door. Night wind rushed in. David bowed his head and picked up Julia without saying a word. Carol brushed past me without a glance. The door shut behind them with a cold, steel-like click. I returned to the bedroom where Madison slept peacefully, her tiny hands still clutching the blanket's edge. My heart was heavy. But in the middle of that storm, one truth anchored me. No one would ever make her feel like she didn't belong in this world. No matter the last name, skin tone, or bloodline, Madison was my daughter, forever. I locked the door behind them and pulled out my phone to call Noah. The line crackled for a few seconds before his voice came through, breathless from just landing. "I got Madison out. They just left. She's still sleeping, exhausted." I told him everything. The soaked floor, the peeling hands, the bruise on her shoulder, the paperwork child comment. Silence stretched long on the other end. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. "I'm not letting this go. I don't care if they're my biological parents. Our daughter was hurt, Grace. I can't forgive that. I need you home tonight. Not tomorrow, not after work, tonight." "I'm grabbing a cab from the airport. I'll be home in 20 minutes. I hung up and walked back to the room. Madison was still curled up, breathing quietly, like even her sleep was trying not to disturb anything. I sat at the edge of the bed, gently adjusting her blanket. Her damp hair stuck to her forehead, lips pressed tight like she still feared something. I wasn't waiting for Noah to act, not after what had happened. I went downstairs and packed every belonging of Carol and David, coats, purses, theme park souvenirs, into cardboard boxes. The silver-framed pictures of them with Julia I wrapped in newspaper and placed on the front porch. Next to it, I left a handwritten letter. From now on, all contact with Madison must be supervised. No one, not even those calling themselves grandparents, is allowed to use words or actions that make her feel less than. This is not a request. This is a rule. Violate it. Cut off entirely. Grace Lyman, legal and only mother of Madison. I heard the door open behind me. Noah stepped inside, coat still on. His eyes scanned the room and stopped at me, still tying the last box. "You did the right thing." He stepped closer and placed a hand on my shoulder. "My parents need to relearn what family means." They won't. They deny it. Their first reaction after being caught was blaming Madison. I want them to hear it from me. Tonight. We sat down to make the call. I put it on speaker. The call connected in less than 3 seconds. Carol picked up with a sharp tone. "Grace, I've never been treated this way in my own son's home." Noah cut in. "Mom, this is Noah speaking, not Grace. I just got home. I heard everything." "You don't understand the whole story. Kids need discipline. Madison is too sensitive, always whining. She's not like Julia. She lacks structure. You left her alone for 6 hours, made her scrub floors with bare hands until they bled, called her a paperwork child. Noah's voice dropped, each word like stone. Do you realize what behavior you just described? David chimed in, cutting across. Noah, I'm sorry. I didn't know it got this bad. But don't let anger make you throw away family. That family broke the moment you treated my daughter like a burden. Madison will never be second again. That ends now. You're pushing us away over a child who's not even blood? Noah fell silent, his grip on the phone tightened. When he spoke again, his voice was steady and firm. You just repeated the reason she's hurt, not even blood. To me, love doesn't need DNA. I love her like my own. If that makes you feel like strangers, then you're the ones leaving this family, not us. Carol scoffed. She's turned you into a puppet, Noah. I make my own decisions. And now I'm making this one. All contact with Madison must be in the presence of Grace or me. No solo gifts. No unsupervised outings. No whispers behind our backs. I will monitor everything, and if you violate this, there will be no next time. The call ended with Carol's bitter sigh. David tried to squeeze in one last apology, but Noah had already hung up. We sat in silence under the kitchen light. After a while, he looked at me. I used to think love alone was enough to hold a family together, but I've learned you need boundaries too. Otherwise, they'll cross every line without hesitation. I nodded. I'll protect Madison at all costs. No one, no matter who they are, gets to make her feel unworthy. Together, we drafted an email to our family lawyer, requesting assistance with a formal, supervised visitation agreement. Not to threaten, but to lay a safe foundation for a child learning how to trust again. That night, I sat by Madison's bed until she stirred, her eyes fluttering open in a sleepy haze. Mommy, am I in trouble? I kissed her forehead. No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. From now on, I'm the one who makes the rules, not anyone else. She let out a soft breath and snuggled into her cat-shaped pillow. Outside, early spring rain tapped gently on the roof, washing away the residue of what never deserved to stay. And in my heart, there was no longer any room for blind tolerance of those who used family as a weapon to control and harm. 3 days after the confrontation, our home phone rang at noon, as if it had been waiting. I had just set down a plate of fruit for Madison when the name Aunt June popped up on the screen. I picked up. Her voice came through sharp with accusation, no greeting. Grace, Carol called me this morning in tears. She says you've banned them from seeing their granddaughter, even though all she wanted was to teach the child responsibility. Kept my tone calm. Did she tell you that teaching meant leaving an 8-year-old home, alone, for 6 hours and making her scrub floors until her hands bled? There was a pause. June sounded uncertain. Carol didn't say that. She claimed Madison exaggerated things because she was upset after being asked to clean up a spill. I didn't respond. I opened the photo album on my phone, sent her a picture of Madison's blistered hands with the caption, "This is the result of that responsibility." The message was marked "Read" within seconds. No one called back after that. But after that, the phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Aunts and uncles from the Lyman side started texting, some asking questions, others being openly hostile, and a few hinting that we were destroying family harmony over something not worth it. Several of their words sounded like they came straight from Carol. Julia never complained. Madison is adopted, maybe just overly sensitive. You can't let kids manipulate adults. Noah sat still at the kitchen table, scrolling through the messages, his expression growing darker by the second. None of them really want to hear the truth, they're just repeating whatever Mom and Dad said. I nodded. Except one. That night, my phone rang close to 10 p.m. The name on the screen, Michael Lyman. Noah answered and put it on speaker. His younger brother's voice was hoarse and hesitant. Sorry for calling this late. Julia just fell asleep, but she kept asking about Madison all day. She drew a picture of them riding bikes together, then asked, "Why can't we play anymore?" Noah leaned back, sighing. "Because Mom and Dad crossed a line. Did you hear their version of what happened with Madison?" "I did, but then I heard Julia say a few things that really made me think." Michael paused, then continued. "Madison didn't eat with the family, was made to scrub the floor, got scolded for being too noisy, while Julia got to watch TV and eat ice cream. I thought she was making it up, but Julia said Grandma Carol told her Madison didn't need to be treated like Julia because she's adopted." My hands tightened into fists. Noah gave a slight nod as if he'd been waiting to hear those words. Michael's voice dropped. "Grace, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it had gotten this serious. Is there anything I can do?" I looked at Noah. He didn't hesitate. "Help Julia. Stay in touch with Madison. The kids shouldn't suffer for the mistakes adults made." From that day on, Michael became the one bridge that still held mutual respect. He mailed letters to Madison, including drawings from Julia. One had a note that read, "I miss you, Madison. Mommy said when the grown-ups stop being mad, we can go to the park together again." Madison held the letter and read it quietly. I asked, "How does that make you feel? That someone thinks I'm worth it?" I didn't reply. I placed my hand on her shoulder and left it there for a long time. Michael also took the initiative to call our relatives and explain what really happened. Though no one admitted anything directly, the stream of accusatory calls slowed significantly after 2 weeks. Some sent secondhand check-ins through Michael. The tone was noticeably more cautious, like they'd begun to understand this wasn't as simple as Carol made it seem. During a video call, Julia burst into tears when she saw Madison. "I don't want you to get scolded anymore. I don't want people saying you're not like us. You're my sister." Madison teared up too, but this time she didn't look down. She sat upright, eyes steady on the screen. "I'm okay now, but I won't go back to that house. I don't belong in a place that treats me like an outsider." After that call, Madison drew a new picture. 2 kids sat side by side in a field of flowers. Above them were 2 suns, one red, one orange, overlapping with no shadows in between. I framed the drawing and hung it in her study room, a quiet reminder. Even if the world refuses to see you clearly, you can still create your own light and share it with those who choose to see with their hearts. Madison sat curled up on a lemon-yellow armchair in Dr. Rachel Ellison's office, a child psychologist and family therapist based in Springdale, just outside Milwaukee. Noon sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting soft shadows on the carpet and dancing through floating dust motes. Madison fidgeted with Fluffy the rabbit's ear, eyes focused on an unfinished drawing, hand slightly trembling but steady. Rachel handed Madison a fresh tray of colors without a word. She simply waited, the same way Noah and I waited on the long couch across the room. 4 weeks after everything happened, Madison still startled at the sound of the doorbell. Some nights she'd wake up suddenly and ask, "Is Grandma here yet?" Her body had clearly thinned, and her eyes kept scanning the room like she was searching for an escape. We had tried everything, but finally realized we needed someone who could untangle the kind of hurt that comforting words alone couldn't reach. We chose Rachel after reviewing nearly 20 profiles. She was the only one who didn't ask why in the first session, but simply said, "This child needs to hear that no one has the right to make her feel less than anyone else, not even those who call themselves grandparents." The first session was just Madison. By week 2, Rachel invited me in. By week 3, Noah joined. Then in the 4th week, she suggested, "If you're willing, I'd like to invite David and Carol to a session, not to reconcile, but to let Madison see that she has a voice and that it deserves to be heard." I didn't object, but I didn't agree either. Noah spoke first. "If they agree to sit quietly and not blame, then we'll give them one chance." Rachel nodded. "The session will be fully supervised, no words allowed outside respectful boundaries. If they refuse, it means they're not ready." The following week, David came alone. He sat timidly next to Madison, his face weary. "I'm not here to justify anything, just to say, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how far things had gone. Madison looked at him, didn't back away, but didn't come closer either. She asked, "Do you think I deserved to be left behind?" David was silent for a long time. "No, you didn't deserve that. No one does. I was wrong." The session ended quietly, but Rachel gave me a small nod as we left. It was a good sign. It took another 3 weeks before Carol agreed to come. She sat upright, purse on her lap, eyes heavily made up but refusing to meet Madison's. No one asked her to speak, but in the thick silence, she did. I used to believe blood was the foundation of family. I didn't hate you, I just didn't know how to love a child who didn't look like me. I was wrong. I won't deny it anymore. Madison didn't answer immediately. She looked to me. I nodded, but stayed quiet. "You said I should be grateful for being taken in, but Mom never made me feel like I owed her anything. She told me I deserve love, just like anyone else." Carol bowed her head. She didn't argue. No excuses. Rachel suggested the next 3 sessions include only Madison and her grandparents, with either Noah or me present. No gifts allowed, no photos, no mention of words like adopted or different bloodline. Agreed. Madison started drawing more. The colors in her pictures slowly brightened. The animals had names, the houses had open doors, and people waiting on porches. In one drawing, Madison sketched 3 people, one with long brown hair, one tall in a button-up shirt, and one small cuddling Fluffy the rabbit, with a scrawled caption above, "A real family isn't made by them, but by love." Rachel kept the drawing. She said it held value as a psychological milestone. By the end of the month, we agreed to let Madison meet Julia one afternoon at Central Park. Michael took the girls while Noah and I watched from afar, choosing not to interfere. Madison ran across the grass with Julia, laughing freely for the first time in over a month. As the sky turned a soft golden orange, she ran up to me and said, "Today was fun. No one compared me. No one said I was not one of them." I knelt down and smoothed her hair. "You don't have to be like anyone else to be loved. You only need to be yourself." From that day on, supervised visits continued regularly, not because we hadn't forgiven, but because Madison needed time to rebuild her sense of worth after it had been chipped away for so long. Carol began attending an individual therapy group for grandparents in multicultural families. Rachel recommended it, and she didn't decline. One afternoon, Carol texted me. "I haven't dared to ask Madison for forgiveness yet, but I'm learning how to love unconditionally. Thank you for not shutting the door forever." I didn't reply, but I saved that message in a folder labeled New Beginnings, because not every wound has to end in severance. Some things require firm boundaries more than they need anger. And within those boundaries, Madison was growing, stronger, more grounded, and no longer seeing herself as a shadow among conversations about bloodlines. She didn't need the Lyman name to be loved. She only needed to be who she always was, herself. The following June, the kitchen was filled with the sweet smell of vanilla cake. Madison stood on a wooden stool in a cat print apron, carefully sprinkling colorful candy bits on top of the frosting. On the table were handmade cards she created herself, each with a heart and a short message. "Thank you for loving me the right way." Noah wrapped gifts in the living room while I tied ribbons around boxes of cookies for the birthday party. No lavish affair, no glittery backdrop, no endless guest list. Just a few close friends, Madison's classmates, and people kind enough to make her feel safe. At exactly 3 p.m., the kids began to arrive. Julia was the first to run in, holding a silver-wrapped gift, her cheeks flushed from the sun. Madison hugged her cousin tightly, then led her straight to the backyard, where clusters of balloons were tied to the white wooden fence. Michael followed behind, nodding to me. I gave his hand a gentle squeeze, my silent thank you. No one in the Lyman family had stood by Madison the way he had. Not long after, David showed up. He brought a hardcover photo book, a custom-made gift featuring Madison's therapy session drawings. Carol came too, dressed more modestly than usual, without designer bags or pearl necklaces. She lingered on the front step before approaching, holding a small cardboard box. Madison glanced at me, as if asking for permission. I smiled and said nothing. She walked over to Carol and took the gift. Can I open it now? It's up to you. Madison peeled away the wrapping and pulled out a photo frame. Inside was a picture of her beaming between Noah and me. Below it, handwritten in black marker, "Family is where people choose to stay because of love." Bill said nothing more. Madison hugged the frame to her chest and ran back to join the other kids. No need for forgiveness spelled out in words, just actions, enough for Madison to sense that things were starting to change. I stepped into the yard where the kids were playing a treasure hunt. Madison led the group, holding a hand-drawn map she'd made herself. Her laughter rang out as she discovered a jar of candy hidden beneath the peach tree. No one asked if she was really theirs. No one watched her like she was conditionally allowed, only innocence restored. The very thing Noah and I had fought to protect all year. After the party, while everyone was cleaning up, Rachel, Madison's therapist, stopped by. She handed Madison a premium watercolor set with a note. "You've redrawn yourself. Don't stop coloring the world your way." That night, Madison lay on her bed, head on the pillow, and softly asked, "Mom, will I still be an adopted kid tomorrow?" I sat on the edge of the bed and gently pulled the floral blanket over her legs. "You've always been my daughter. Not because of paperwork, but because I get up early to make your toast every morning, because I read stories even when I'm exhausted, because I choose you again and again." And she turned to hug me. "Then when I grow up, can I adopt someone too? Someone who doesn't have a mom like I didn't?" Again, "You can, as long as you do it with your whole heart." She closed her eyes, a smile on her lips, and I sat beside her bed, silently watching the child someone once called not truly ours. A child who once doubted her worth simply because she wasn't born into a bloodline. But love doesn't require DNA to be valid. It only needs consistency, protection, and an unwavering answer. You are worthy of love. I didn't give birth to Madison, but I chose her. And that choice, every single day, is what makes me a mother. Far beyond any piece of paper. Grace and Madison's story is proof that family isn't defined by blood, but by love chosen every day. In real life, many children grow up wounded by being seen as outsiders in their own homes. But as Grace did, when a mother chooses to stand up for her child against invisible harm, she doesn't just save one child, she redefines what family means. A place where everyone deserves to be loved the right way, unconditionally. What do you think about the way Grace protected her daughter? Can love truly replace blood in a family? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and choice.